The Democratic National Committee announcing today that the 2020 convention will take place in Milwaukee in July of next year. But it was another city that was abuzz with Democrats this weekend, Austin, Texas, for the South by Southwest Festival, where more than a half a dozen 2020 hopefuls were spreading their messages. In such a crowded field, candidates are vying for attention-grabbing moments like the one South Bend's Mayor Pete had last night, weighing in on a fellow Hoosier, Vice President Mike Pence.
It's really strange because I used to at least believe that he believed in our, I've disagreed with him ferociously on these things, but I thought, well, at least he believes in our institutions and he's not personally corrupt. But then how could he get on board with this presidency? How could somebody who, you know, his interpretation of Scripture is pretty different from mine to begin with. How could he allow himself to become the cheerleader of the porn star presidency? Is it that he stopped believing in Scripture when he started believing in Donald Trump? I don't know.
How could he be the cheerleader for the porn star president? I'm keeping my eye on Mayor Pete. Joining the table, Washington Post political reporter Philip Bump and Karine Jean-Pierre, senior advisor to MoveOn.org and MSNBC contributor. I mean, this is going to be a primary, much more than the horse race, which in my opinion is meaningless for many, many more months now, are moments. And that was an undeniable moment.
And that's how you get out of a crowded field. As you just said, you know, there are about a dozen folks out right now, and it is with those either inspiring speeches or trying to find a viral moment.
It doesn't have to be a whole speech, it's a moment.
A moment, right, and it's hard to find it, and kudos to Mayor Pete for finding that moment. I mean, we're talking about him right now. And, you know, so now the question is, can he turn that into small dollar donors so he can end up on the debate stage? Because that's going to be tough for him. Because if he can do that, then I think he can have a real impact on this race.
You know, they were all over Austin this weekend, and you know, the primary takes place on really like two almost never intersecting tracks, right? There's the polls, and there's a poll out that shows, unsurprisingly, we'll put that up, in Iowa, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden way ahead of the pack. Elizabeth Warren down at 9 if you're in your car, Kamala Harris at 7, Beto, who isn't in yet officially, at 5, Joe Biden at 27, Bernie Sanders at 25. This is just a theory. But I think as many people are watching and waiting for these moments, and as Karine said, to see if they can be sustained as they're watching the polls. I think that's some of the Democrats' baggage from 16 and 8.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are probably two things that are really affecting the Democratic field right now. The first is general apathy. I mean, those of us sitting around this table discussing it, obviously paying a lot more attention to this than I think average Democrats are. But those average Democrats that are paying laser-like focus onto who can beat Donald Trump, right? And so the question that you've got is, yes, you've got this gentleman from South Bend, Indiana, making this comment about Mike Pence. Can he beat Donald Trump? And a lot of Democrats are saying right now, I know who Joe Biden is. I know who Bernie Sanders are. I feel confident they've run elections in the past and can beat this guy. So yeah, that was fun and everything, but like we got to make sure we win this thing, and so, you know, in a panicked voice, then I think that's driving a lot of what's happening.
Right, choosing Milwaukee as a convention site, first of all, at least guarantees that the nominee will be in Wisconsin this time around. But I think that is right, is that you have the ability, you need to be able to break through. And especially this early, when the field is this crowded, when really, other than the diehards, I mean, yes, there's enthusiasm right now. Democrats are out there. These candidates are raising money. We're seeing big crowds in Iowa and New Hampshire. But those are the kind of places where people are always paying attention. Nationally, yet we don't know.
I don't know. Let me challenge both of you. I don't pick up any apathy everywhere. I mean, I live in New York, arguably a very Democratic city. I don't pick up any apathy. And I don't pick up any sense that they're waiting for something else to happen. I think they are already sort of scrubbing these candidates, turning them over like rocks or seashells found at the beach, and seeing what they're made of.
And I think that anybody who's been watching Pete Buttigieg knows that this is no surprise.
Oh, you can say it.
Sorry,
you were showing off. I took the name of it. You were showing off.
You can say best on I covered the DNC race, okay? And while he didn't win, he was far and away considered the star of the event. And everybody had said, watch this guy, watch this space. He's not just from the new generation, so he knows how to talk differently on guns. He knows how to talk differently on income inequality. He represents the middle of America. He's been an executive. He's a mayor. And I think that, to Karine's point, the only question here is whether he is going to be able to get that space on the stage and get his opportunity, because frankly, he was actually able to talk, I think, more succinctly, more on the point, and has an agenda than what we've heard out of Beto, even though there's been so much.
Yeah. So let me bring you the latest Beto news. All right. Most it was the New York Times. All right. So you got Mayor Pete. I got Beto. More recently, Mr. O'Rourke moved well to the left of many 2018 Democrats by raising the prospect of impeaching Mr. Trump, argued for the destruction of existing border barriers between El Paso and Mexico, and in perhaps his most widely seen social media moment, defended the professional football players who were kneeling in protest during the national anthem. That was during his statewide run in Texas. Karine, who's Beto in this race right now?
I think Beto is that. So if you look deep in a lot of these pollings, they say they want someone new and they want someone different. You see that over and time again. I think, like we were saying, it's all name ID, and especially this Iowa poll. It's one poll. You know, this time 4 years ago, Scott Walker was leading the poll in that poll, and he didn't even make it to the Iowa caucus. So we have to be incredibly mindful. But there is some space there for someone new and someone different, and he is an inspiring candidate. There's a reason why we talked about him, forever during the midterm elections. But I have to say, the Democratic base is excited. They've been energized for 2 years. Look at just the past elections. And I think it's now these candidates have to walk and chew gum. And what I mean by that is they have to be inspirational, but they have to say, how are you going to beat Trump? Why should we go with you? And they have to be bold with solutions, because we can't, where Donald Trump has taken us, we can't just give incremental change. We have to be bold and say, this is how we're going to.
And we haven't said anything about the women running this hour. Shame on me for leading the conversation. But Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Kristen Gillibrand, very much in their early moves, and Amy Klobuchar dealing with a bucket of WaPo or sort of a pass that's proven. I think it's really the most challenging sort of person dealing with headwinds at this point. But they're all showing that they could pass that walk and chew gum test.
Exactly. And if you even look at the head-to-heads just with Donald Trump and any Democratic candidate, especially in the tier one, they all beat him, right? And so now we just have to make sure we don't mess it up. And I think that's the concern that I have. Don't label yourself. Just talk about the visions. Just talk about what you're going to do for this country, and just move forward, because the base is with you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.